right, hey guys, I'm trying something a little different today. Instead of you trying to go back and forth between a video and filling in your copy of the slides, I thought I'd try an Edpuzzle today. So we'll see how it goes. This is our last set of notes, really, before I come back. So I thought we'll try this out and see how it works. All right, so today we're going to talk about the evolution of democracy in Athens. Now, it's a common misconception that all of Greece is a democracy. That is not true. It really just starts in Athens and becomes a more popular thing as time goes on. All right. But they don't start that way. All right. It is an evolution. It's something that takes time. They learn from their previous mistakes, and that leads slowly to a democracy. So let's go ahead and check out the next slide. All right. So as I go, it is going to pause and ask you some questions in the Edpuzzle. Don't panic. Just answer the question to the best of your knowledge. And then it should be a completion score, so don't panic too much. All right, so let's see how we do. And that way I can give you points for completing it, and you're not going back and forth from slide to slide, and it's just done. Now, I will put a copy of this in materials in Google Classroom in classwork, so you have a copy of it to work on your study guide. All right, so let's talk about monarchy. So monarchy is rule by one. You ever heard the phrase mano y mano, man versus man? All right, so monarchy is going to be ruled by one. In a monarchy, the only way that you can become king or queen is if your parents were king or queen, or maybe you have some, distant uncle that doesn't have any kids that would then make you the next in line for the throne. In a monarchy, kings would rely on wealthy nobles. And we call these wealthy nobles aristocrats, all right, to help rule. So you're the king. All right. And you have all these wealthy, powerful friends that are going to help you do so. All right. So much so that you kind of just get to sit back, do your own thing, and let your rich, fancy friends do a lot of the work for you. Now, the reason why the monarchy is going to last is people don't think it's fair. They don't choose the monarch. The only way you become king is through your parents, and that doesn't seem fair. All right. And plus, you have these nobles that have been doing most of the work. And they don't get any of the power. So those nobles that have been doing all the work for the king to just sit there on his throne want more of the power. So that's what's going to lead to an oligarchy. Oligarchy is oli, which is a few. So I always think only a few oligarchy. All right. So in here, we have our fancy pants people get the power. All right. And we remember that these fancy pants people, the better term for that is aristocrats or nobles. All right. Now, Sparta is going to go from a monarchy to an oligarchy, and they're going to stay here. All right. They're never going to evolve past an oligarchy. All right. Now, the problem with an oligarchy is you have these rich, fancy people that are ruling all the normal people of the world. And it just doesn't seem fair. If you're a regular Joe Schmo, why should these rich, fancy people be telling you what to do? All right. So some of the reasons why it didn't last is the regions are going to grow too big. There's little food, and people are going to overthrow that government. All right. Now, the big change here is in an oligarchy, the people decide that they want to put their own people in power. They don't want these rich, fancy people in power. Those rich, fancy people have no idea what it's like to be your average, everyday person. All right. So when we switch from an oligarchy to tyranny, we're really looking for someone that's like us, all right, that can best represent us, all right, and best do things that we think are best for us. All right, so let's go to tyranny. All right, so tyranny kind of has a bad connotation because it is, by definition, ruling in a harsh way. A synonym for a tyranny is a dictatorship. All right, and typically in a dictatorship, you take power by force. All right, but remember, we picked this guy. All right, we wanted this guy. This guy said he was going to stand up for us. So was going to make sure that we had enough food, that we had enough of everything that we needed. Unfortunately, it didn't always work. Sometimes these tyrants started out with the best of intentions, but they got power. And when you have power, sometimes it goes to your head and you get a little too greedy. You abuse your power just that tiny bit too much. All right, and when a tyrant died, there was no line of succession. You didn't know, the son's going to be next. Typically, after every tyrant was either overthrown, killed, or if he just died, you had this civil war that would ensue between the other guys that think they should be in charge next. All right. So why it doesn't last? Many were harsh and cruel. All right. And it was unstable. There was a lot of instability, right, with taking over and over again. All right. So just it felt like there was a revolving door on the throne. And there was no good way. There was no election. There was always a war or a battle for the next guy to take over. And that just didn't seem like the best thing to do either. So eventually the people of Athens were like, wait, why do we keep trying to put one person in charge? And it fails every single time. Do we really need one person in charge? Couldn't we just, I don't know, rule ourselves? Right? And that is how we get to a democracy. All right. Demos equals people and kratos equals rule. So that's where we get the word democracy. And by definition, democracy literally means rule by the people. And the person that helps create this democracy is Pericles. And in a democracy, all citizens participate. Now, in the United States, we know all those guidelines to become a citizen, to vote, you have to be 18, all these things. In Athens, things are a little bit different, right? If you think of the population of the United States that can vote, it's a pretty strong number. In Athens, only 15% of their population can participate in government. So even though they are ruled by the people, they are only ruled by 15% of the people. All right. So 15% are citizens. 12% are what we call foreigners. These are people that were born somewhere else and came to Athens to live. All right. These are called metics. The other 48% are women and children. And then the other 25% of the people living in Greece are slaves, or in Athens are slaves. All right. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that later on when we get to, about a week or so when we get to Sparta and Athens. But the population is kind of broken down like that. So yes, Athens is ruled by the people, but again, remember it's only 15% that are considered citizens that can actually participate in the government. All right, so our evolution of democracy here. You do kind of need to know the order to understand how we go from a monarchy all the way down to a democracy. So just real quick, let's fill in these blanks. We know that a monarchy is rule by one, all right? And we know that you must inherit the position, all right? We also know that after a monarchy is an oligarchy. And we know we switched to that because these rich, fancy aristocrats, remember, we're helping the king rule, and they wanted like a chunk of that power. It just didn't seem fair. So that was the oligarchy. Unfortunately, with the oligarchy, remember, it's only the rich, fancy people that are making the decisions for everyone, all right? And they're not the people that understand what it's like to be your average, everyday Joe Schmo. So we move to a tyranny. Remember, a tyranny rules in a harsh way, or as a tyrant, or a dictatorship. Can't spell. All right, so now remember, with the tyrant, we kind of have a revolving door, right? We keep saying, we like this guy, put him up there, put him up here, let's fight for him, we like him. But then he abuses power a little bit, maybe we don't like him anymore, and then we're like, oh, get him out, put this guy on. And then we finally kind of realize, why do we even need a guy? Why can't we just do this ourselves? Why can't we rule ourselves? And that's where we come into a democracy, right, which is ruled by the people. Remember, one of the biggest things here is, though, that how are you a citizen? Remember, we said that you had to be 18, you had to be a male, you had to be born in that city-state along with your parents, had to be born in that city-state, and you had to not be a slave. All right, so remember, only 15% of the population is considered a citizen that can be a part of the government. Now, what we're going to look at now is just the difference between a representative democracy in the US and a direct democracy, which was in ancient Greece or ancient Athens, it really should say, or both. All right, so we're going to move these around. Honestly, I probably should have done this with the last slide, but that's okay. All right, so women cannot work their own property. That should go into ancient Greece. I guess I'm not at work, but I'm in my house, so, I can own property. All right, any citizen can hold any government position except president and vice president. And honestly, I think that any citizen can hold any government position. That can go in both. All right. Now, in the United States, the only position you cannot hold if you were not born here is president or vice president. But any citizen can hold any government position in either place. All right, foreigners cannot vote. All right, that is in both. Eventually, yes, U.S. citizens can get granted citizenship, but you just can't come visit from France and place a ballot. All right, so citizens must be born in the area. That is only ancient Greece or ancient Athens. All right, because we have citizens that were born in lots of other places. Eventually, you can get your citizenship. Women can vote and own property. I just filled in my absentee ballot the other day, so that is the U.S. Women are politically active. That is just the U.S. 100 jurors per trial. We learned about that in Archimedes, the assemblyman. That would go over here in ancient Greece. Women are not politically active would go over here as well. Women cannot vote is going to go over in ancient Athens. If I can get it, the little cursor thing to go here. There we go. All right, it's going to go in ancient Athens as well. Jury of 12 people, that is here in the United States. All right, so that is here. Everyone is protected by the law. That's all well and good. And that is in both. All right, everyone protected by the law. Women can vote. I already had that, but that's okay. All right, both sides of the at a trial can speak. That is actually in both. All right, so if you are convicted of a crime, you have a right to defend yourself both in ancient Athens and in the United States. All right, citizens can speak freely. We have our First Amendment right, which is freedom of speech. All right, and both and ancient Greece believed in that as well. Both places also believe that you can have an opportunity to better your position in life. Judges and lawyers at trial, this actually is just the US. Those are going to come a little later in Rome, but they are not in ancient Greece. However, here in the United States, if you don't want a lawyer, you don't have to have one. You can represent yourself, and you had to do that in ancient Greece. So accused can represent himself at trial. And then finally, our last one here is foreigners can become citizens and vote. So here in the United States, if you were born in Greece or Canada or wherever, you can move here, all right, get citizenship, and then vote, all right, where in ancient Athens, you could not do that. You had to be naturally born to that area. All right, so those are some of the similarities and differences between the U.S. and ancient Athens democracies. All right, so I have a final copy of this here. And remember, I said I'll put a copy of this material in Google Classroom. I'll do it like right after this, actually, but it will be there for you to look at so you can complete that last slide in your study guide. All right, guys, get working on that study guide, and I will see you or talk to you tomorrow. Bye.